Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you had a good break, and I hope you enjoyed the previous presentation. We're heading into the final sessions of the event, and we've got some really good presentations coming up, including two from the WMO. This is the first. There'll be a short presentation following this, and then we'll be straight into the seconds, and then concluding the day with a presentation from NASA. I'd like to introduce Etienne Charpentier, who's head of Observing Networks and the Measurement Division at the WMO. He's going to begin his presentation now. If you do have any questions, feel free to use the chat or the Q&A facility, and we can put questions to Etienne after he's finished his presentation. But with that said, over to you, Etienne. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gwyn, and welcome everyone to this event. So I'm going to talk about the ongoing evolution of WIGOS, which stands for WMO Integrated Global Observing System, and with a focus on surface-based or in-situ observing systems. Outline of my presentation, so I will allude a little bit on the WMO strategic plan, talk about the new WMO Earth system approach, and then go a little bit into WIGOS. We have a plan for initial WIGOS operational phase. I will talk about GBON, which is a new initiative of WMO related to data availability and capacity development. And associated to that, we have a systematic observations financing facility, so-called SOF. And finally, there will be one slide on training material available to you. So in terms of the strategic plan, in WMO, we have a vision. So that plan was adopted by Congress back in 2019, whereby the world, where all nations, especially the most vulnerable, are more resilient to the socioeconomic impact of weather, extreme weather, climate, water, and other environmental events, and empowered to boost their sustainable development through the best possible services, whether over land, at sea, or in the air. So in order to realize that, and this is a bit of the focus of my presentation, we have one of the long-term goals, which is called long-term goal 2, which is about enhancing Earth system observation and prediction. And under that particular goal, so I'm going to provide some more details here. We have three areas, basically. 2.1 is WIGOS observing systems, if you will, integrated observing systems. 2.2 is WIS, so that is our WMO information system. So that is about facilitating exchange of data. And 2.3 is really where we do forecasting and deliver products. So that's called the GDPFS, Global Data Processing and Forecasting System. Since the last Congress in 2019, there is a new so-called Earth system approach of WMO. So really here, what we are trying to do is first look at global numerical weather prediction as a foundational application, which is increasingly being interfaced with other Earth system domains than the atmosphere. So basically, we look at the ocean, we look at the cryosphere, hydrology, even biosphere. So we interface NWP with these domains in order to improve prediction at various timescales. So this is increasingly needed, in particular for climate change, for example, subsequent to long-range predictions. And of course, going into this Earth system approach makes data availability very, very critical. So this is one of the focus of my presentation here. For promoting data availability, we have basically three initiatives here, which you see on screen. And so the first one is we are promoting a new so-called WMO Unified Policy for the international exchange of Earth system data. But we have two other initiatives, which I will allude a bit later in my presentation, which is called GBON, Global Basic Observing Network, and the Systematic Observations Financing Facility. So when it comes to unified data policy, the goal is to integrate the data policies that we have right now in WMO. We have a so-called Resolution 40, which was adopted more than 20 years ago, and that for weather data, and that doesn't necessarily address the needs for Earth system prediction today. We have one on hydrology, so-called Resolution 25, which was adopted also a couple of years after Resolution 40, so it's quite old also. And we have a Resolution 60 for the exchange of climate data. So now we are really looking at integrating the three and promoting what we are going to call core or mandatory data to be exchanged among WMO members, and also some recommended exchange requirements. Also, the concept of data is going to be more broadly defined, so not just observations, but also analyzed fields and predicted products. Also, something key that we are going to introduce with the new data policies is implementation and compliance monitoring. So it's good to have a policy, but we need to make sure that the policy is being followed. And also there will be a periodic and consultative review of the practices aspects of the data policy. So for now, we don't have that policy approved. It will have to go to the Extraordinary Congress in 2021. But we have a draft policy that was recommended by our Infrastructure Commission, which is an intergovernmental body. And when you will download my presentation, you can access to the text of that draft data policy. Now I'm going into WIGOS. What is WIGOS? WIGOS is the Integrated Global Observing System of WMO. It is a foundational activity addressing the needs of member services. So in the area of weather, climate, water, and other environmental aspects for observations. It is also an umbrella for all WMO observing systems, but also for co-sponsored observing systems that WMO has to follow common standards and procedures. So co-sponsors are basically GIGOS, so climate observations, ocean observations with the GOOS, co-sponsored with the IOC of UNESCO. And what WIGOS is not is it is not replacing or taking over existing observing systems. They continue being owned and operated by a diverse array of organizations and programs, national and international. You have a link to the WIGOS homepage here. For WIGOS, we now have a vision, so-called Vision 2040. So we go very far ahead here, especially to meet the planning activities of space agencies for satellite observations. The vision serves as a reference for WMO members and other observing system operators, providing context and expected boundary conditions relevant for observing systems developments. And we look at evolving user requirements and technology. So things such as big data, for example, and Earth system prediction plays a very critical role in the WIGOS vision. It informs the planning efforts of users of observations, so basically med services and WP centers, but also more broadly, because we are willing to work more closely with the private sector nowadays. So we have public-private engagement, and there was a Geneva Declaration around that adopted by Congress on working with the private sector a couple of years ago. As I said, it informs long-term planning of satellite agencies, and also we are currently working at developing a so-called high-level guidance for the next 5 years on the evolution of global observing systems in response to this vision. And you will find the text of the vision here with this link. The plan for the WIGOS initial operational phase has been recommended by our Infrastructure Commission. It will go to the Executive Council next month. And it includes basically 6 priority areas for the next 4 years, at least the period 2020 to 2023. So there is focus on national WIGOS implementation, so providing proper guidance to our members on how to undertake WIGOS implementation. Fostering a culture of compliance with the WMO and WIGOS technical regulations. And we have new regulations for the regional basic observing network, for example. And we are going to have new regulations for the GBON. I'm going to come to that one later. Operational deployment of quality monitoring based on a system which we call WDQMS. So it's a tool, a web tool. I will show you some slide about that one. Operation implementation of regional WIGOS centers, which are here to, at the regional level, basically to assist members to monitor the quality, make sure that information about observing stations are collected in the OSCAR database. And finally, this OSCAR database is a repository of so what we call WIGOS metadata. So it's basically information on the observing platforms. We have a new concept of WIGOS station identifiers, which was also adopted as part of the technical regulations. And it is critical for all stations which data are being exchanged internationally that they use those WIGOS station identifiers. So I'm not going to list all the expected outcomes of the plan for WIGOS initial operational phase. You can download the presentation and have a look at that, but there are a substantial number of benefits that are expected from that plan. WIGOS tools, so I have alluded a bit on the OSCAR surface or repository of WIGOS metadata. So we encourage members to nominate focal points, and that focal point is responsible for uploading in this web interface information on the WIGOS metadata. Similarly, we have a tool for data quality monitoring, which we call WDQMS. It's an operational monitoring system. We have 4 centers involved in providing monitoring data there. And it is useful to assess data availability and look at issues that we may have. So in terms of issues, the incident management system is also in pilot mode. We're going to go operational very soon. And there is a ticketing system whereby monitoring centers can report, or the regional WIGOS centers can report on systematic errors and make sure that these are corrected. So this is a view of the WDQMS. So you see colors there on the system. So if you type wdqms.wmo.in, you will see the tool. And here you see some color dots based on the data availability according to, in comparison to the requirements that we have. Some words on the WIGOS station identifiers. So there is a structure in the identifiers, so I'm not going into the details there, but it is important according to the technical regulations that members issue such station identifiers. They are unique in principle, and also they should provide the WIGOS metadata in the database. And this is how we get the stations identified also in the database, not just in the data that are being exchanged. It is recommended that members develop their own national schema for assigning WIGOS station identifiers, and you will find some examples on the website here. For each new WIGOS station identifiers, you need to register the station in OSCAR surface to ensure uniqueness of the station. And also, just as a caveat, we cannot use the traditional alphanumeric codes for WIGOS station identifiers. You will have to use the binary code, so-called buffer, for exchange of the data using those things. Regional WIGOS centers. So you see here the basic functions of the regional WIGOS centers. So metadata management, So make sure, so they talk to the WMO members, to the focal points identified in the countries, and make sure that the metadata are collected and quality controlled. The WIGOS data quality monitoring system includes 3 functions, basically: monitoring of quality, evaluation of incident, and incident management. But there are some other functions that the regional WIGOS centers can undertake, such as promoting or designing regional networks, doing project coordination, or assisting with regard to capacity development. So where we are with the implementation of the regional WIGOS centers, so in Region 1, Africa, we have some countries who have agreed to provide some facilities there. So Kenya and Tanzania for East Africa, South Africa for the southern part of the continent, and Morocco also has submitted an application for the North, West, and Central African countries. In Asia, we have China and Japan. They are running in a pilot mode since the second half of 2018, and a new coordinated phases plan to start in July 2021. South America, we have Brazil and Argentina running in pilot mode since May 2020, and Brazil supports northern part of the region, while Argentina supports the southern part. Region 4, North and Central America, it's less advanced, I would say, here. So there is still discussion going on between a few countries listed here: USA, Canada, Trinidad and Tobago, Costa Rica, and the Caribbean Meteorological Organization to agree on a virtual network of regional WIGOS centers. Southwest Pacific, Region 5, there is a concept of operation being discussed between Indonesia, Singapore, Fiji, and Australia. And tentatively, they will start a pilot phase in the second half of 2021. Region 6 in Europe, so we are at the early stages of discussions, and the way forward and timeline is not clear yet. And similarly for Antarctica. Some words about the learning portal. So just if you follow that link, you will find some training material. We use a so-called Moodle platform in WMO. It is visible to everyone, so I'm encouraging you to check that portal, and you will get training so for your staff or people working in your med services about OSCAR, WDQMS, and so on and so forth. So now some words, as I said in the beginning, for the Earth System approach of WMO, we have those 3 initiatives: data policy, GBON, and SOF. So some words about GBON. So GBON stands for the Global Basic Observing Network. Its purpose is essentially to address what we call the foundational user requirements of global NWP, and also climate data reanalysis. And it is a recognition that you need global data to undertake such activity. If you want to do forecasts at certain days in advance, you need to go very far away to have impactful observations, so to say. So Congress has agreed on a concept for GBON. The Infrastructure Commission of WMO has also recommended some new technical regulations with some stringent requirements. You will find the text of the proposed technical regulations in the link here in the presentation. And this will go to Congress Executive Council for approval. So once approved, those regulations will come into force. So here we are basically promoting horizontal resolution of 200 kilometers for the surface-based observing networks, 500 kilometers so over land for upper air radio sound observations. Obviously, as you can see on the map produced by the WDQMS, or WIGOS Data Quality Monitoring System, we are not quite there yet. So in green here on the map, you see countries that basically meet the GBON requirements. but you see a lot of parts of the world with orange or black dots, which so orange is 30% availability, for example, and black are silent stations, essentially. So we have some very critical gaps to be addressed. So here, how to fill the gap? So the goal of GBON is to turn this map on the left to a completely green map. And we are addressing two issues there. One is making data of existing stations available. We know there are many observing stations deployed, either by NHMS, but also by partner organizations. So we encourage NHMS to talk to the partner organizations and make sure that all existing stations are being, well, data from those stations are being exchanged internationally. But also we recognize that it is quite challenging for many countries, especially Region 1, parts of Region 2, and then some other areas, Region 3, to implement observing systems and fill the gaps. So here, this map actually shows how things go when you compare the GDP with the surface area of a country. So in order to be fair, for example, countries like in the Region 5, they have a very large exclusive economic zones. They are very small population, smaller GDP. It is unrealistic to ask them to fund the observing system for such a large geographic areas. So this is where the SOF comes in, which is the Systematic Observations Financial Facility, which is a mechanism whereby WMO is discussing and negotiating with financial organizations to assist those countries, at least the least developed countries, to implement observing networks in their regions. So you see the gaps here for basically surface stations, top map, and upper air stations down below. So in fact, if we succeed in filling those gaps, these will of course primarily benefit those countries in red, but also the whole world, because there is no way you can do Earth system prediction without getting global data. So we are developing an alliance for hydromet development, talking to a number of organizations. Here you see the list. SOF is an innovative way of financing observations. It supports country to generate and exchange GBON observations in a sustained manner. So GBON is really the type of requirement that we are trying to achieve with this initiative. And it supports country to assist to access improved weather forecasts and climate analysis products. So we have three novel features as part of SOF. First, apply internationally agreed metrics to guide investments. Two, use data sharing as a measure of success. And three, generate local benefits in providing public good. It is an ambitious undertaking, and we are looking at we have identified at least 68 small island developing states and least developed countries that could be supported to become GBON compliant. And expected from the initiative, we would increase by 10 times the data shared from upper air stations and by 20 times the data shared from surface stations. We are looking at raising funds at the level of $400 million US for SOF. Such funds to be provided through a 5-year initial implementation period. So it is an initiative. SOF is not really here yet, so it's still under development. We have an investors forum planned soon to discuss with the funders and get some more accurate figures there. And the plan is that it's going to be submitted to the COP26 in November in the UK and to firm up soft institutional arrangements, to securing political commitment, and to mobilize at least $200 billion US of commitments. You will find more information on stuff through those links here in the presentation. So I'm really encouraging you to download the presentation and look at the material available there. So thank you very much. This is the end of my presentation, and I will be happy to reply some questions if you have some.
We have 1 minute left for questions. So if anybody has any questions, if they want to use the chat function or the Q&A function, please do so now, and I will put those questions to Etienne. Thank you. Etienne, we haven't got any questions coming in, so I'm going to wrap it up there and move to the next session. I'd like to thank you very much for the presentation. It was incredibly interesting. We had a good audience number. So if anybody has any follow-up questions and wants to email us or message us on the platform, we can pass them on to Etienne as well, and help you get an answer. Once again, thank you very much, and hopefully see you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.